Marhaba. Welcome everybody to our third installment to our All Questions Answered series. We're very excited to have our wonderful guests with us today, and we're here to make sure that you don't walk away from this series with any of your legal or accounting questions unanswered. So today we have with us Bassam Mustafa. I hope
Ahmad,
you all remember him by now. Is good?
Ahmed, you're on the Instagram on your personal, not the pack.
Okay, so we have Bassam Mustafa, who's the president of BSM Accounting, and he's also an IRS enrolled agent. He's a contributor to Forbes and NBC Telemundo, and today he's going to be talking about business compliance, changes in tax regulation, and additional possible stimulus. We also have Ahmad Aburas, who's a newly admitted attorney, and he's going to be talking about general reopening guidelines, updates on previous discussions, and penalties, criminal changes, and fraud regarding loans and grants. So we're very excited to have our two wonderful guests with us today. This is your chance to ask all of your questions. We really need, we want to hear from you. We want to see if you guys have any questions so that we can make sure they're addressed. Even if it's not relevant to the topic we are talking about right now, please make sure to ask your questions. This is a great way for us to make sure to get them answered. And we want to thank our wonderful sponsors and our grantors for this programming. This program was made possible through the funding by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, and this entire series was funded by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation. And without further ado, I would like to start off with Bassam.
Bassam, is it good?
Yeah, that's good. Hey guys, how are you? Thank you, Rania. I mean, I appreciate you guys doing this as always. I know we talk about that, but so today is our final episode of our workshop, and I wanted to kind of tackle today and answering as many questions as possible, and also answer some of the frequently asked questions that we've received, that we've seen for some of the people coming to our office or giving us a call and everything like that. So I wanted to dive right into economic injury disaster loans. So these are more the disaster loans that have been pretty active in the last week or so. A lot of many clients have been putting in applications to for those loans, and I'm kind of seeing the same type of question regarding that. Questions. So one of the first questions that we've kind of received was the application process, right? So some people are don't keep track of their proper records for 12 months. They don't do their bookkeeping on a regular basis, so it's kind of hard for them to put in the actual numbers. So I want to talk a little bit about how important that is, because what I've seen and through the research I've done over the last for the last 15, 20 years. Is there an echo?
A little bit.
Okay. So through the research that we've done over the last that we've seen is that typically in times of disaster, the SBA would generally issue issue loans without much stringent regulations, without going through many compliance, and then later on, after 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, they would start to go back and audit those type of applications to make sure that the numbers that were actually given were accurate. So it's very important when you fill out these applications that the proper numbers, and you provide your accountant, or if you're doing it yourself, to actually report the proper numbers when you're doing this. In the event that you don't, there could be hefty penalties, and it could be even some criminal charges, whatever it is, that could be also applicable to putting in false information on the loan application, especially to a government agency like the SBA, the Small Business Administration. So another question that we kind of get is like, all right, great, now you got the money, and what do I use the money for? Can I take this money and open a business? Can I take this money and invest in real estate? These are pretty common questions. You would think because it's a loan, that as long as you're paying back the loan, that it's you can use it for those type of things. But there's a lot of caveats that when it comes to some of these loans, especially the SBA loans. So it tells you what you can and can't use the money for. So you have to be really careful, right? The purpose that they're giving you a low interest rate, the purpose that they're giving you the money pretty quickly like that, is to help your business stay afloat. So really operational costs. What are some operational costs? Some fixed debt. So if you have some long-term debt for the or short-term debt for the business that you had acquired through COVID or through any hardship, those are kind of the expenses that you can use to pay off for to pay your business expenses. So you could use the loan to keep your business operational. You can use it for payroll. So if you have to pay your employees, paying employees is different than paying your owners or distribution. So you can't use it to give out shares, dividends. You can't use it to pay back owner loans that the owner has made to the business. So you really can't use the money to distribute it to the owners as repayment of some sort of balance sheet item, or an account that's on their liability, a liability that you may help. But if you have some short-term debt, if you have some credit card expenses that you needed to incur, if you're back on rent, on mortgage interest, mortgage payments, things like that, absolutely, you can use the money for that kind of stuff. So accounts payable. So if you have any open vendor invoices, you can use the money to pay that kind of stuff off. So some bills that could not be paid because of a disaster. So there's also a lot of gray area in these SBA loans. So they ask you, there's a formal process for you to go through to get some expenses approved through the SBA that you can spend. And I would definitely recommend putting in the time and effort and understanding what you're using the money for, so that you're not going to be hit with all these penalties and really have a problem with a lot of these issues later on. So definitely stay on top of that. I guess we're gonna jump back. Ahmed, I guess I'll defer to you real quick just to talk a little bit about some criminal penalties and what it means to fill out an incorrect application, as well as what happens in the event of the SBA contacts you and whatnot in that event, and then we'll dive right back into some other stuff on my end.
Ahmed, you're on mute.
Ahmed, you're on mute.
Echo, but it should be good now.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, like you mentioned earlier, these loans you apply for these loans for a specific purpose, right? And you can't really use them outside of that scope. These SBA loans, they're federal loans, and you're subject to federal law. So misusing these funds and taking advantage of them in the improper way, there are criminal liabilities and civil liabilities as well that you can face. Criminally, you can be imprisoned for up to 30 years and up to $1 million in fines criminally. And civilly, it's just as great. It's just as equal the risk that you're going to face, right? You got to pay the loans with penalties and extra fines, and you don't take advantage of what the purpose that you applied for the loan, right? Basically, that's what I was going to bring up, the criminal charges. What were you going to follow up with regarding?
So yeah, I think that's pretty significant, right? I mean, what is it, 30 years? Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah,
30 years that you can go to. Yeah, and also in addition to that, just by filling out the application incorrectly, and you having to repay that loan back, they're going to charge you 1.5 times. So if you receive a $150,000 loan, you're going to pay back $150 plus $75,000 in penalties. And don't forget what you just mentioned, the possible jail time too. So definitely, it's not something to be taken lightly, and you should definitely consult. If that, God forbid, that ever happens to anyone, or you receive any notices of audit from the SBA, definitely contact an attorney like Ahmed.
And this also
that will help you.
I'm sorry, Bassam, to cut you off, but this also applies to like false statements on the applications. So it's not just misusing the money; it's also like lying on the application. What you're going to use the funds for. So that itself, you're going to violate other wire fraud statutes and mail fraud statutes as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you brought that up, wire fraud. I think that's one of the things that was mentioned in the SBA website, and in the actual contract that you sign, that you are liable for any wire fraud, or that you can be charged for any of those penalties, any of those. So I'll talk a little bit about who's eligible, right? So let's talk about who is eligible for some of these disaster loans, right? So small business owners with under 500 employees would qualify. Sole proprietors, so I know we've been getting a lot of questions. I know Rania has been receiving a lot of questions regarding unemployment. So some people have not received unemployment, but that does not mean that you cannot receive an injury disaster loan. So you can still apply for an injury disaster loan if you're still expecting to collect unemployment. The two have nothing really in common. So you should definitely dive in to learn more about that. You're not going to get 150,000, but you may get something to keep you afloat and help you pay for your vehicle, help you pay for your rent, expenses, and everything like that. It really depends on how you file your tax return to see how you can use that type of money. Okay. Also, if you're a part of a co-op, so if there's co-ops and you're a part of a co-op, you can use the money for there. I don't know if anyone's really applicable to like some stock, employee stock plans that they manage, but that's also applicable. And not-for-profits. So I know that there's a ton of not-for-profits out there, and right now, especially during a time of economic hardship, their donations have really taken a hit. So if you're in that situation, non-for-profits can also apply for the injury disaster loan. So keep that in mind. One thing that comes up is if you owe more than 50% or past due 60 days of child support. So if you owe child support and you're the owner of a business, you're not going to qualify for an SBA loan. They're gonna check that to make sure that that's not applicable for you. And the other thing is that your child support, and you got to have acceptable credit history. So what they're going to do is you're going to have a hard inquiry on your credit when you apply for this application, and what they're going to verify your identity. So by verifying your identity, they're going to ask you, maybe, have you ever lived at Main 123 Main Street? Have you had an American Express credit card? Whatever it is. So they're going to ask you those types of questions, and it's to verify your identity, but also to make sure that your credit worthiness, that you're able to pay back and you have a history of paying back. It doesn't mean that they're gonna actually hold you liable, have that SBA loan on your personal credit score. But really, what it's meant for is to protect the SBA at the best of its ability in such a short time at processing these types of loans. Because if you think about the amount of volume that the SBA is going through right now to issue these loans, there's no way they are checking your financial statements. They're relying on your good faith. So as long as you're providing good faith projections in your financials and your credit history and all the information that you provide to them, so make sure that that's 100% accurate, because the last thing you want is to get that loan and then
a lot of this will come up like later in auditing, where once they start auditing when you file taxes next year, then it's going to come up all these discrepancies that you don't put in the loans originally, right? That's where they start seeing people lied on their applications and they misuse funds. So it's also like, sure, you'll get it now, but you got to be careful.
Exactly, and that's why we're here. I know there's everyone wants these loans. It's great, and a lot of people have been getting them pretty quickly. I mean, the last one we did was like 24 hours. You're getting a loan. So with it, you put an application in, simple application. 24 hours, you're getting an email to verify your identity. In 48 hours, you're getting for example, 150,000 you're approved for. You're getting $150,000 in your bank account. That's pretty quick to get that kind of money. And now you're like, okay, I have this money. My business maybe doesn't need it. What else can I do with the money? But really think twice before you go ahead and spend it, So other things you can't spend the money on: dividends and bonuses. I know we talked about this a little bit, so I'll go a little bit in more detail. So dividends to the shareholders, you can't issue any types of dividends during that time, as well as distribution to owners. So you can't use that money to pay any distribution to its owners. Okay. Repayment of shareholder loans. So any shareholder has a loan that they paid the company in prior year or prior years, you can't repay that money to a shareholder and say, hey, here's your money. So you can pay other creditors, but if they have any arm's length transactions with the company, that's where that would become a conflict. Okay. Yeah. You can't use it. So this is a big one. You can't use it to expand, right? So if you can't use it to say, okay, well, great, this area, I didn't like, being on this block, so I want to move to the next block, or I want to move to the next town over. You can't use the money to take and relocate to another location unless with there's specific circumstances that can apply. But you have to reach out to the SBA before you make any move, because you need to get their approval before doing so. Okay. Repair or replace physical damage. I'm not sure why this can't apply. If there's any physical damage, I would definitely reach out. If there's any physical damage to a property, to some of your equipment, I would definitely ask the SBA to have that done, because I think that should be pretty standard, especially if it was caused by the disaster. You can't use it to refinance long-term debt. So long-term debt would be a mortgage. Anything past 5 years on a debt principal would be considered long-term. Well, technically, anything over a year is considered long-term in accounting terms.
Business specific, obviously.
Business specific, yeah. So really, that's where you just should be careful. Like, what's considered long-term? And for us accountants, anything that's 365 days and more considered long-term. 364 days, short-term. So
okay, 1 year or more.
I think the SBA kind of is going to take that same rule, because that's based on GAAP, U.S. General Accepted Accounting Principles. So I think that's pretty standard. But I mean, paying off other federal debt besides taxes. So you can use it to pay some taxes, right? But you can't use it to pay off any federal debt. So people, the SBA is not new. The SBA has been around for years, right? And they've issued other forms of disaster loans in the past, after 9/11, after Hurricane Katrina, after a lot of different ones. This one blankets the whole country. You see what I mean? So paying off some people have loans outstanding from those 10, 15, 20 years ago. So you can't use this money to refinance it and pay off those loans. So you can't use federal loans to pay off other federal loans. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we mentioned this a little bit, relocation. You can't use it to relocate to another area. Okay. So that's a little bit on the injury disaster. I know, Ahmed, you talked a little bit about the penalties and stuff. You want to take on some current events that are going on right now?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit maybe about some of the scams that are going around right now, and just to give people a heads up so they can be aware of some of these scams and emails that are going out, and especially for those aunties out there that are always forwarding those WhatsApp messages with those links. It's like, please, like you're exposing everyone in the group to like these phishing scams.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's phishing scam emails that are right now. I think there's like reports in New Jersey. They hit the titles like Federal Reserve System or Receive Payment, and they'll have a link. And they know everyone's concerned about their unemployment. So they'll say, if you don't click the link, your unemployment check will be delayed, or, stuff like that. Or sometimes they'll be like cyber criminals that are trying to capitalize on this unemployment and, uncertainty. And they're just like, they'll have a Zoom link. You have to join the Zoom conference, and it's like a spoof page where you click on the link and there's no actual website behind it. And they're just, they hack into your system and they get your social security and your date of birth. And there goes your identity,
Yeah.
So if you see anyone that's just, if they're contacting you, before you click anything or before you respond to the phone calls and give information, always hang up and you call back. You always call the government, the IRS, whoever it is, call them and check and see, like, this is the phone call I got. Is it true? And if you feel it was a scam, please just like report it. You can go to either, there's an email, I think it's disaster@leo.gov. It's like the disaster hotline, disaster fraud line for the government, the DOJ. And I know they're prosecuting a bunch of websites and a bunch of people right now because of like fraud and because of, misusing funds. And, right now, another thing is like price gouging. Like we saw this in the beginning of the pandemic, and people really have backed down a little bit, but prices of masks and hand sanitizers, you should always report these people because they're taking advantage and at the cost of those that are really, they need the help,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've actually received a couple of clients that called me and they said they got voicemails from people that are looking to update their banking information so that they can get the direct deposit, or it's the SBA looking to fund their account for the SBA loan, so they need the updated banking, checking and routing number. and that's where you have to be really careful giving that type of information out. And I think the younger generation is more kind of
They're more aware.
familiar. They're more aware of what how a lot of these internet thieves and hackers and whatever it is they operate. And I think the old people that are a little bit less tech savvy are going to fall into those traps, huh?
The boomers.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely be careful on what information you spread out. I wouldn't, personally, just I don't want to give anyone personal advice on that, but I wouldn't forward any WhatsApp message regarding unemployment or any loans to anybody, because you could be putting them at risk. And you most likely, no government agency is going to send you a WhatsApp message.
Yeah.
On to do something. So, they may say there may be links, there may be stuff like that. And there's a lot of, talk around, So if you need, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of talk around about different types of unemployment that people are getting and how they're getting it. But more recently, we've seen unemployment come in through reverse self-employed individuals and being paid one lump sum. And one thing is I just read this morning as a current event is the New Jersey just requested an additional $2 billion from the Federal Reserve to help for unemployment claims. So it looks like they're their money's drying up from New Jersey. And that's possibly, that's due to a lot of people on unemployment, and it's also some backlogs. But I think the percentage was like 92% of the unemployment claims are actually being filled. So if you're one of the 8% that are out there, there's the 1-800 line that just opened up last week. So I would highly recommend you calling the call center, because now the call center is available for you to go ahead and call them and get status on where your unemployment is.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big reason why they're pushing in Congress to get the new HEROES Act passed. That's going to add additional funding until January of 2021.
Yeah. Anything on the stimulus package? Any additional stimulus coming out, Ahmed?
Nothing yet. The stimulus package was supposed to extend, the loans and the grants available on the HEROES Act, but I think it's still like the voting is June 25th. They said, or on Monday, June 29th, I believe, in Senate. That's when it's scheduled to go on the floor. Who knows, man? Like the Senate is so split right now. We don't know which way this decision is gonna go.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything. I think they have to decide before. So obviously the deadline for the $600 of unemployment is going to cut off in July.
Is it mid-July or end of July?
I believe it's the end of July, July 30th. So if that's going to get extended, that's going to get pushed pretty quickly in July, I think. To get people going. So we're gonna either hear of another stimulus next month.
Honestly, like I know a lot of people are taking advantage of it, but a lot of people, there's a lot of businesses that are losing employees because they'd rather be on the unemployment, the $600 extra a week, than working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the PPP, right? So Payroll Protection Program. I'm sure a lot of businesses are familiar with that. I'm sure a lot of businesses are, like I mentioned, familiar with that. There's more and more information coming out for the forgiveness part of it. Can you guys hear me, or is it?
No, we're good. There's a little echo, okay. But I can hear you.
Okay.
Sure.
So there is the forgiveness part. There's more and more information on the forgiveness part coming up. With that being said, there's an easy form easy for the PPP loan forgiveness. So for self-employed contractors, individuals with no employees, things like that, they can file a forgiveness easy application to the SBA. As far as my knowledge, you still don't have all those documents out and live yet. I believe the documents are out, but there's no portal for you to submit that type of information in. So definitely keep an eye out for that. If you're looking for help with a PPP loan forgiveness, we have to sit down on an individual basis and kind of go through that. So give us a call if you do need help with the PPP loan forgiveness. And I talked about this. We've been releasing some 10 series episodes talking about small businesses and PPP loans and things like that, just keep in mind that you have to plan, right? You got to plan to maximize the forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
As long as you have the proper plan in place, you're paying your employees accurately. You're within the threshold. You're paying your rent. You're using the 60-40 split that we mentioned previously. You're not lowering your employees' pay. You're keeping the proper employees on payroll. So there's a lot of different criteria you have to meet. It can get pretty, sorry. It can get pretty tedious, right? So I would definitely recommend a one-on-one basis when it comes to your PPP loan forgiveness. So yeah, that's what I want to say regarding that. So as you guys know, we're taking any questions. If there's any questions, if you guys want to leave them in the comment section, we can go ahead and start answering any of those questions.
Any question about previous topics as well?
So I just have a question about, I know that you're talking a little bit about the forgiveness program. There's something that's coming out called the Simplified. You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Changes on the PPP loan to use and the percentages to use from Mazda Hashim. Bassam?
Yes. So so last week we talked a little bit more in detail regarding the PPP changes. So the Flexibility Act was passed in the beginning of June. What it did, it changed the percentage from 75%, 75 payroll, 25% operating cost, to 60-40. So whatever the loan amount is, multiplied by 60%. That's the minimum that you have to use on payroll for your employees. The second one is going to be 40%, right? So the 40% can be used on your rent, could be used on utilities, can be used on mortgage interest for your building, not for your home, but for your business, and other basic operational costs, but mainly those items, right? So if you don't reach the full 40%, some people don't reach the full 40% because maybe they don't have rent or they don't pay utilities or things like that. So I would push a lot of that into your payroll so you can at least reach 100% of payroll, because 75%, 60% is the minimum. Okay. Originally, the time frame was 8 weeks. After the Flexibility Act, that was now pushed out to 24 weeks or December 31st, whichever comes sooner. So if you receive the PPP loan, if you're going to receive it prior to July, then you'll hit the 24 weeks before the December 31st timeframe. One thing to mention is that the PPP loan actually expires on June 30th. So if you have not put an application in for the PPP loan, go ahead and put an application because you have 7 days left to submit that. They can fund you the money after June 30th, but the application has to be in before then. So be sure to do that. You have 7 days to do that. They changed some other things regarding the rehiring threshold for the businesses. So if you need to rehire some employees, there's an employee rehire threshold. Originally it was 90% within that 8 weeks, but there are certain requirements now that you can meet to have that requirement waived. I would try to hire the employees, but there are certain thresholds. For example, if you want to go ahead and rehire your employees and they're at if you want to go ahead and rehire your employees and you don't hit that 90% threshold and they refuse to come back to work, I would definitely have some sort of contract or written agreement or something that indicates that they did not want to come back to work and that you offered them a full-time position.
You have to protect yourself as a company.
To protect yourself, you also have to tell the New Jersey unemployment, because if they're collecting unemployment and they've been offered a safe working environment for them to come back to work and they refuse to do so, that's also pretty that's also grounds for being terminated off of unemployment.
We have two questions, Bassam. One is from, if you're looking at the screen, you can see it.
I want to ask if the unemployment office made a mistake from their end and sent me money that I think it's more than what I should get. What should I do? I don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. Okay.
It's a good problem to have.
I mean, first off, you're not the IRS doesn't administer unemployment. The state of New Jersey does. Okay, so you're not going to get in trouble from the IRS. The state unemployment can ask you to repay some of that money. What I would do in that situation, ethically, I would call them and ask how they came up with that type of calculation and why. Like, why do you think that they sent you more? Because the money is based off of your wages, right? So I don't think that's like a common mistake, or I don't think that's even a
It's a
mistake they
formula
might
with
have
a
used
specific percentage based on your income levels.
on your income level. So I don't think the way the calculation goes, I don't think that would have been, and I don't think that's a mistake. I think you probably just owed that, but maybe you believe that's probably less. If you want to be on the safe side, call the unemployment office and have them explain to you how they came up with that calculation on that front. You know, and that's a personal preference. You know, I mean, I don't know if you would get in trouble if they made a mistake. I don't see you getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I think also couldn't it also be that, because I know that the part of the
distinguish between the funds from sales and SBA loan money when you're paying from the same account.
What is that? I'm sorry.
How do you distinguish between funds from sales and SBA loan money when they're both coming out of the same account?
It's a good question.
It's a tough. It comes down to auditing, right? Like proper auditing.
Yes. So distinguishing between the SBA loan amount and sales, right? You should. So priority is going to go to sales, right? So if your sales are keeping your business alive, then your SBA funds they're not necessary to be kind of injected into your business. So priority is always going to go into like what sales that you have, and then if, for example, you're short, that's where the SBA loan comes in. It's really meant as a safety net for you. I mean and you know, it's easy to commingle funds like that. You know, it's going to be very easy for all businesses to commingle the funds. And how do you plan to repay? The only thing is that I can say is that just continue to run your operations normally. If you need to pay back rent, if you need to catch up, right? I would use the SBA funds to catch up. And moving forward, try to reestablish your sales to cover your operating costs. If that's already happening, then go ahead. I would say go ahead and pay yourself an average salary. You know, do the things that you would do in a normal course of business, and keep the SBA loan as a safety net. But definitely don't take the money out and use it as dividend distribution. Like if you have prior expenses that you've paid, for example, on a credit card, on any liability that you have, any short-term debt, anything less than a year that you haven't paid off, I would use the SBA loan immediately to pay off all the previous things that you've had, because that's what that's meant for. So that's, you know, I personally, I would take the SBA loan, put it into a separate account. I would open a separate account, keep the SBA loan in there, and just so you can keep track of what the money came in and what the money came out. Because for bookkeeping reasons, they also go for two different areas of financials, right? Because a loan is considered a liability, so that's going to belong on your balance sheet, and your sales are going to belong on your profit and loss based on your income statement. So open a separate bank account, keep that loan in there so you don't mix it, and then use the loan immediately to pay off any previous things to keep you up to speed. If you need it to continue to keep your business flowing, use that. And then as your business increases, try to pay off that loan. And if you need to increase distributions or whatnot to your shareholders or things like that, but don't use the money to just pay off shareholders. Use it through your sales so that you have justifiable transactions to push to your owners withdrawals.
Tanya, do you have any other questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because before, no, you couldn't hear me. So I have a couple of questions. The first, just in regards to Alia's comment about the mistakenly maybe the wrong number. I think it could be also potentially that she's getting the extra relief. So it's not only your typical unemployment right now because of COVID, the government is providing additional relief. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's an additional $600 per paycheck.
Is that what she's referring to?
I'm saying maybe clarify, because that could be very much why she thinks she's getting more than that. So maybe if you could
That's
talk a
that
little bit more
mistake.
about that. Yes.
Okay. So that could be a possibility. If so, the unemployment is calculated based on your wages, and they determine your unemployment wages. However, because of the coronavirus pandemic and the stimulus that pushed out, they issued an additional $600 per week for each individual on unemployment, to help them get through that rough time. So if the amount that you're receiving is in a separate payment of $600, then 100% that's not a mistake. That's just the stimulus that's going on, and that's extended. That's going till July 31st as of today. So if it's $600 even, that's what that is. If you're referring to the actual unemployment amount that you're receiving, the base unemployment amount, that's where I would say, if that's what you're concerned about, then to call the state with that.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Another question is, I know you talked about the forgiveness of the PPP loan. There's something coming out called the Simplified PPP forgiveness application. Have you heard about it, and can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so the simplified forgiveness application is really exactly what the title. It's a simplified form for individuals with no employees, for individuals that for sole proprietors to really cut. So I'll give you guys a little. I'll talk a little bit about, right. So on a tax return, there's a 1040 tax return, right? There's also a 1040 EZ. So 1040 EZs are really meant to make it easy, right? So W-2, single, no dependents, nothing like that. You're pushing in a tax return, very basic, very clean. So it's really helped to ease the filing for that individual that doesn't have a lot going on. And same thing with the simplified forgiveness. It's really meant for a small group of people that don't have the means or the capability or whatever it is to fill out a whole application, or maybe they can't afford it or whatever it is. That's that simplified forgiveness application is for. However, I would still highly recommend and suggest that you speak to a professional, because you could fill it out incorrectly. You could do something wrong, because this is not just new to you, it's new to us, you know? So I would definitely recommend, it's definitely, money well spent, because it could cost you thousands of dollars, and having to repay that money back to the SBA. So I wouldn't recommend like the simplified method for anyone to do it themselves. And that's just speaking honestly, because mistakes can easily happen. I mean, mistakes. They have the non-filer tax return, tax filing program for the stimulus packet, for the stimulus checks that was out with the SBA, right? So I had a real true story. A client filed out their own non-filer return, and they indicated that, for example, they were dependent when they weren't, because they just did not know, and then now they are exempt from a $1,200 check. So definitely consult a professional when it comes to that type of situation, and in this type of situation where it costs you thousands of dollars. It's not like, okay, well, it's going to be the same thing if a professional does it or not, whatever it is. So, you know.
Okay, another question in regards to what you were talking about earlier about the bonuses. So can you kind of clarify that? What do you mean? So like, for example, what if someone is able to fill out the normal price, but then also needs ends up paying a bonus separate to the loan? How does that work?
A bonus to the loan? So what do you mean, like a bonus to the loan?
No, I mean
So
a bonus separate, like you're paying an employee like from another source of income, a bonus, right? That's separate from the loan, the loan that you received. Because you're saying bonuses
the bonuses,
nullify the loan.
it's not bonuses to employees, it's bonuses to shareholders. So dividends is bonuses. Sense. So for example, if I give if I'll go deeper into it. So if because you received the PPP money, that's not fair for your employees if they're used to a bonus every year, or maybe you can't give them a bonus and say, hey, you can't use the government as an excuse to say, hey, you know what, well, I can't give you a bonus this year, or you're not getting your Christmas bonus because we applied for a PPP loan and coronavirus just happened. I mean, I guess that could be that, but it can't be because of the PPP loan that you received or the EIDL loan that you received, because that's a 30-year loan. Business could be thriving in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5, 10 years. You can't use that as an excuse. But really, the dividends and the bonuses that get paid out cannot come from the EIDL loan. So how long that? I mean, I don't know, but many corporations got their bonuses when 2008 and golden parachutes, when that happened. I didn't see anybody, I didn't see anybody go to jail then, but I'm just saying, wash my hands clean.
So another question is, I know right now we were discussing in one of the previous weeks about the HEROES Act. So right now the PPP loan and the economic disaster loan both are limited to 8 weeks. I know that we talked about the potential of them being extended to 24 weeks. Were they extended to 24 weeks, and how can one apply for that?
Okay, so really, the timing, you don't have to. So if you applied prior to June 8th for the PPP loan, you have the option to pay it and finish it up in 8 weeks. Post June 8th, you can it's automatically extended to 24 weeks. If it's prior, you have the option. You don't have to fill out anything, but you have the option to extend it over to 24 weeks. And it automatically extends when you fill out your forgiveness application. So as of right now, all I have is that the forgiveness application is to forgive it. There's no application in between to say, hey, I want to extend it to 24 weeks. You follow what I mean? So I believe you're fine in that front, that just go ahead and use it within 24 weeks and fill out your forgiveness applications for that. And I know Chase Bank has sent a lot of documents to, because we applied for individuals or businesses through multiple different banks. What I've seen is Chase Bank has been sending a lot of follow-up regarding the forgiveness with any documents that the SBA has released. But I haven't followed a single forgiveness application yet, because a lot of people are still haven't used all the money, or it's been 8 weeks. It hasn't been fully 8 weeks till they used it, or they maybe now want to extend it to 24 weeks. I don't know. I'm sure we're gonna start getting calls about this in about a month or so, when after July 30th, and then when people are going back to work and things start to open up. As you see, things are starting to open up now, this week, next week, malls open up next week, all this other stuff. So then people are going to start using their PPP money in the next, I think, 2 to 3 weeks. And then I would figure 24 weeks to start using it there. I mean, I don't know, 24 plus 2 weeks, 6, I mean, I don't know, like
4 months.
I would say by like at the end of the year, many businesses that receive the PPP loan will start to really give us a call on that. But every individual is different. When you received it, what you use it for, how you used it, and also if you use it for something that's not payroll related, and this is specific to PPP. Okay, if you use it for something not payroll related or that's not forgivable, right? That's okay. What it converts to it's originally a loan. Actually, it's originally a loan, and then now it's a 5-year loan at 1% interest rate.
Yeah.
So if you don't really care for the forgiveness part of it, and you say, hey, I just want the money as a loan to do other things, right?
Yeah.
You can use that money for that, and that you'll just get what it is. It's a 5. So PPP is a 5-year loan now at 1% interest rate. That's amazing. There's a provision that if you use it within 24 weeks for payroll, for operating expenses, for utilities, for mortgage interest, and you submit the proper documentation, and you submit your forgiveness application, you send it all to the SBA. The SBA then will go through its approval process, and if approved, they will forgive you for a specific set amount, the whole amount, maybe 50% of the amount. So it's prorated. So just because you don't meet one threshold, that doesn't, for example, let's say you couldn't retain 100% of your employees, but you retain 75%. That doesn't mean, it's not like forgiven or not forgiven. No, it means, okay, we're gonna prorate it based on that 50%, and then now you'll get that 50% prorated loan forgiveness, and the rest of the amount needs to be paid within 5 years on that 1% rate.
That makes sense, and that's really helpful. I know we're wrapping up, so if anyone has any questions, please make sure to ask them now. Before we go into any final questions, I wanted to share this very beneficial screen with everybody. It's a really beneficial chart. We've been getting a lot of different questions about unemployment and who qualifies and who should apply. So if you see here, it goes, if an employee is unable to work because must care for children at home due to coronavirus closures, you are eligible for the Federal Emergency Law Child Care FMLA. You're also eligible for the paid sick leave. You're also eligible for the earned sick leave, and you're also eligible for unemployment insurance. And then we have the second category, which is workers caring for a family member who's diagnosed or in isolation or in quarantine with suspicion of exposure. You're eligible for everything with the exception of the Emergency Law Child Care FMLA. And then as you see, when you go down through this chart, that has different things. So if you're like exposed to COVID or have been laid out, you are eligible for these things. And then when someone is, so this is really important because we're getting a lot of different questions about this. So if a person who is out of work because employer voluntary closed, they are only eligible for the unemployment insurance. If a person who is out of work because employer was ordered to close, they are eligible for the unemployment insurance and the earned sick leave. At this point, most businesses are reopening, so I don't think there's anyone that is ordered to close. Most people are under the voluntary, or at least in the next week or so, most people are going to fall under that. And then you can go through this chart. It's a very useful chart. You can find that on newjersey.gov. I know we've been getting a lot of different questions about unemployment and who qualifies and if I qualify or don't qualify. And I know that the whole process is very confusing. So I think it's very helpful to kind of go through this chart and understand where you fall on this chart and if it makes sense for you to qualify for unemployment. So just basically the only thing that does not qualify for unemployment here is an employee permitted to open, but worker is afraid of gathering in a group and refuses to work via social distancing. And the questionable one is an employer stays open in defiance of state closure or public health order and worker refuses to work. So these are just some different things to keep in mind and to think about. I think it's very helpful for everyone to understand where they're coming from. And regardless, I know we've been getting a lot of questions on employment. I know that things are slow, but for the most part, they have the process and you kind of just have to go through it to understand, what's going on with that. Lastly, I just want to share a resource with everybody. I'm going to put it in the comments, but the New Jersey State Board Association has a lot of different resources online. They kind of go through all of different legality issues, and I highly recommend everyone to check it out as well. They have a lot of different useful tips and charts to help explain a lot of different things. So if you have any questions about that, also please make sure to check on that. So with that, I don't see any new questions in the question box. So maybe we can end with closing remarks, and maybe Ahmed, in the closing remarks, you can kind of summarize, some different regulations for reopening and what that looks like and what that means.
Yeah, so like we talked about last week, and I know starting Monday, a lot of the barbershops and spas and salon places opened up. Just keep in mind, you can't have walk-ins. Again, you have to have everything by appointment only. You have to keep your distance. You sanitize and clean. You have to have a set time frame, I guess, between each client. Most places, restaurants, I just saw the governor post yesterday saying July 22nd or July 2nd. Restaurants are able to open at 25% capacity indoor, not just outdoor. So, when you're having clients indoor, they still want the plexiglass. They don't want any client and customer service hand-to-hand touching when dealing with financials or payment services. So just keep in mind, you have to sanitize the place, clean the place, talk to your employees about sanitation. wearing masks, hand sanitizers, give them accessibility to allow the equipment that they need. And yeah, just try your best to not violate, because they'll give a warning, but violations can be up to $1,000 per violation if you're reported. And keep in consideration that there's a lot of people that are afraid for their health, but they still want to support your business. So you do your best to, I guess, accommodate people. Ronnie?
Thank you very much, Ahmad. Bassam, final words?
Yeah, so first, thank you again for Ahmed and Rana for you guys, for putting this together. I know we've been getting, calls with questions, and I'm glad a lot of people have reached out because we encourage them to reach out. Don't feel embarrassed, don't feel shy to go ahead and reach out and ask any questions, because that's what we're here for. So, with that being said, thank you again for everybody for watching and being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Bassam. Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you, Bassam, very much for your time and your expertise on the matters. I just want to remind everybody that we are still going to be offering free consultations. You can sign up at the link below, bsmaccounting.as.me/pack workshop, and you can sign up for an appointment with any of your questions. We also are looking into starting a new webinar series where we'll be discussing everything we've discussed, but in Arabic. So if you're interested in that, definitely let us know. We're excited to be launching that in the next week or so. We also want to remind everybody that our summer programs are starting. We are looking into potentially transitioning slowly in person. Right now, we are focusing mainly on virtual. So please make sure to stay up to date on our website, www.paccusa.org, and you can always visit us at info. You can always visit us or call us at info@paccusa.org, or call us at 973-253-6145. And once again, thank you to our sponsors who made this series and our Friday series and our next Friday series possible, the New Jersey State Bar Foundation. We are very excited to have worked with them, and we thank you all for watching and tuning in, and have a wonderful day. And have a wonderful day. Make sure to stay safe, and please keep wearing your masks and sanitizing.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
No mask, no entry.
Yeah, no mask, no service. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care.
Yeah.